That is that is nothing to play around with. All right. All right. Good. I'm on red, brother. How you doing? Yeah, yeah. So more ways. I'm pulling up a red there. I mean, it's on, but it doesn't show green. So I was assuming that that means that the batteries don't work. But hey, man, how you doing? I'm good. You doing all right? You too. All right, no worries. I'll get started. Okay. Say, okay, okay. Got it. Okay. All right. All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We are had the other microphone. There we go. Test. There we go. Okay. Other microphone was not working. All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We are good to have those who are here. We are continuing our study. Right now, we're coming out of the book of Exodus, and as a reminder, our Sunday morning Bible classes track with our congregational weekly reading. So right now, it just so happens that we are in a long stretch with Exodus, but that's subject to change. As our weekly reading changes, we will get into some other areas, but for right now, we're still tracking with the book of Exodus. If you're participating in class online, welcome to you as well. We want to invite you to pull out your Bibles also as we prepare to study. And so we're going to just pick up kind of where we left off. So we left off last week in Exodus chapter 17. I know the slide says Exodus 18 through 32. I don't even know what that is. That's probably like 12 chapters or 14 chapters. We're not going to cover 14 chapters in a half an hour. I can guarantee that. But through that, but we will. We're going to skip some of those, and hopefully, if Tom is our friend, we'll make it through to chapter 32. But here's a quick review of what we've covered so far. Quick review of what we covered so far. So first of all, the Israelites were saved by God from a pressing or pursuing Egyptian army through, of course, the miraculous parting of the Red Sea. We read about that in Exodus 14. We've already covered that. And then you might recall that the Israelites marked that moment for the Israelites actually being delivered miraculously through the Red Sea. They marked that moment of their deliverance by singing a song of praise to God. And so that follows that event. That is in Exodus 15. And then that event, we talked about this, that event of being saved miraculously through the Red Sea would become a defining moment for the nation of Israel, and not only for them, but also for their enemies, for future generations, right? So we talked about the fact that there are individuals like David, the psalmist, and others who weren't even part of the Red Sea experience, but who were inspired to write about that, reflect on that. Some of the nation of Israel's enemies, or those who are not part of the covenant relationship, the Gentiles, non-Israelites, heard about this miraculous story, and they were convicted by it. Rahab is a great example. 40 years after the fact, and still Rahab and her people heard about this event, and that convicted them on the true God, and so on and so forth. And then, after all of this, what we studied last week is that the Israelites' faith in God quickly begins to fade, in spite of all of God's mighty works in their lives. And so what do we see as a result of that? Well, there was complaining and complaining and more complaining after God delivered them miraculously through the Red Sea. Here are a couple reminders of that complaining, and this is what God's word tells us. 72 hours after they are delivered, 3 days after they're delivered, they complain because there's no water. And then as time progresses, 2.5 months after God delivers them, they complain again because of no food. And you might remember some of the comments. Did you lead us all the way out here so that we could just die here? We could have just died in Egypt, right? And by the way, we remember when we had cucumbers and potted meat and all this good stuff in Egypt, right? And so they complained about food. And then less than 2 weeks after that, they complained about water again. And what we studied through that is that their complaining was more than, it appeared to be more than a physiological reaction to being without food. Because, by the way, we talked about the fact God has designed our bodies to need food. God has designed our bodies to need water. We will feel that. After a period of time, if we don't have food or water, we will feel that. It might cause you to complain. But it was more than that. It was more than them just their bodies reacting to not having something that they needed. It was more, it appears, that they were questioning in their complaining God's ability to provide and also questioning God's motives. How do I know that? Well, first of all, in Exodus chapter 17, verse 2, when they're complaining about water, it says, therefore the people quarreled with Moses and said, give us water that we may drink. And Moses said to them, why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord? Again, why do you test him? Why are you putting God in a situation where he has to prove himself to you again? You drop down a few verses in verse 7, again, more than just a physiological reaction, but they seem to be questioning God's ability to provide and his motives. In verse 7 of chapter 17, it says, and he named the place Massah and Meribah because of the quarrel of the sons of Israel and because they tested the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not? They're questioning. This is the same God who delivered them out of Egypt. He 400 years of bondage, the cruelty of all of that situation, and now suddenly they have no memory of that, and they're questioning whether he's even with them or not. This is what we've covered so far. And so this morning, I'm going to ask, I got it right this time, so I got it right. So I'm going to ask for 5 readers. There's a lot to read up there. There's a lot for us to read. But there are 10 passages, but I'm going to ask for 5 readers who can take 2 passages apiece so that we can hopefully make it through, and we'll talk a little bit. And so what I'm asking is that whoever volunteers to read these passages, read one. We'll talk about it, so we'll embellish a few points about it. And then we'll go on to the next one. So I do really need 5 readers. So Melissa's 1, both Boozers 2. I got 3. I need 2 more. Jeff will be number 4. One more reader. All right, Ramon's got it. All right. So I'm gonna trust that you guys remember. Melissa, I saw your hand first. So you will have the Exodus 18 passages, but we'll go one by one. So let's start Exodus 18 verses 8 through 16, please.
Then Pharaoh told his father-in-law all that the Lord had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake. All the hardships had come upon them in the way and how the Lord had delivered them. And Jethro rejoiced for all the good that the Lord had done to Israel, in that he had delivered them out of the hand of the Egyptians. Jethro said, blessed be the Lord, who has delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians and out of the hand of Pharaoh, and has delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods, because in this affair they dealt arrogantly with the people. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and sacrifices to God, and Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat bread with Moses' father-in-law before God. The next day Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood around Moses from morning till evening. When Moses' father-in-law saw all that he was doing for the people, he said, what is this that you are doing for the people? Why do you sit alone, and all the people stand around you from morning till evening? And Moses said to his father-in-law, because the people come to me to inquire of God. When they have a dispute, they come to me, and I decide between one person and another, and I make them know the statutes of God and his law.
All right, we're going to keep going here in just a second, but this is Moses now having an encounter with his father-in-law. The man's name is Jethro, as Melissa has pointed out to us. We're going to keep reading here in a second. Just want to point out one thing. I mean, this one thing. Notice here that as they've talked, Moses and Jethro, they've talked about the experiences of what God has done delivering them. And then Jethro sees Moses. He witnesses Moses doing something. And what is it that Moses is doing that sort of catches Jethro's attention? What is that? What's that activity? Yes, very good. So Moses is acting as a judge for the nation of Israel. They're bringing disputes to him, right? I just want to point out to you that Moses mentions here in verse 16 that he says in verse 16, when the people have a dispute, it comes to me. And I judge between man and his neighbor and make known the statutes of God and his laws. Now, Jethro is going to have more to say about that in a second. I just want us to recognize that Moses was acting as a judge. He says, making known the statutes and laws of God. This is before God even gave the law. Think about that. Before God actually fully reveals his law, there's still some set of statutes and some set of laws of God that Moses is still sort of discerning between the nation. I just want to point that out. Just sort of a fun fact, not for us to build a theology around it. I just want us to see that before the law is formally given, Moses is already still functioning as a judge, sharing the laws of God with the people. Let's keep going. We're going to drop down. We're still at chapter 18, 17 through 27. What does that say?
Moses' father-in-law said to him, what you are doing is not good. You and the people with you will certainly wear yourselves out, for the thing is too heavy for you. You are not able to do it alone. Now obey my voice. I give you advice, and God be with you. You shall represent the people before God and bring their case to God. And you shall warn them about the statutes and the laws and make them know the way in which they must walk and what they must do. Moreover, look for able men from all the people, men who fear God, who are trustworthy and hate a bribe, and place such men over the people as chiefs of thousands, of hundreds, of fifties, and of tens. And let them judge the people at all times. Every great matter they shall bring to you, but any small matter they shall decide themselves. So it will be easier for you, and they will bear the burden with you. If you do this, God will direct you. You will be able to endure, and all this people will also go to their place in peace. So Moses listened to the voice of his father-in-law and did all that he had said. Moses chose able men out of all of Israel and made them heads over the people, chiefs of thousands, of hundreds, of fifties, and of tens. And they judged the people at all times. Any hard case they brought to Moses, but any small matter they decided themselves. Then Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went away to his own country.
All right, very good. What's the issue here? So Moses is judging the people. His father-in-law says in verse 17, the thing that you are doing is not good. And why does Jethro tell Moses that? What is the concern that Jethro has for Moses here in this moment? What's the concern? Too much for him, right? Too much work, right? So he gives him some advice. He gives him some counsel, which, by the way, I only see one of our shepherds here. Greg and Adrian I don't see. So I want to encourage you this morning. Shepherding is hard work, right? Can be, right? I think there's a principle that we can get from what Moses shares. And again, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm not saying our shepherds are doing something wrong. Please don't even hear this way. This is intended to be encouragement. Seriously, this is intended to be encouragement. That it can be a lot of work. It can take a lot of time, and I don't believe that God expects his called men to be lone rangers. I'll say it that way, because you can burn yourself out. And so here's some counsel that's given here, and notice what he says here. Does he say go to the people and go eeny, meeny, miny, mo and find some folks to help you out with this? Is that the instruction? What's the instruction? Find the right people to do the right job. And in this context, the right people are defined as what? We see some sort of qualifications or characteristics that Moses should be looking for. What does Jethro recommend here? Men who fear God, who are trustworthy, and who hate a bribe. Yes, sir.
Well, as I look through this, and if you want to compare it to that,
Yes.
previous shepherds at Deep River have always counseled the younger men that come into the position
Yes.
to work hard on spiritual things and let others wait on tables. Okay? They've always done that as we've through our history.
Amen.
Okay?
Amen.
And as I look at what Jethro is saying to Moses,
Yes.
tell him about God, that's cool.
Yes.
But all this waiting on tables and all these disputes
Yes.
is going to wear your butt out.
It will wear you out.
So you're going to need help.
You're going to need help. And he does exactly that. That's very good. By the way, you use the term wait on tables, which sort of cues up a next question. So this advice that Jethro gives, and it seems to be good, Moses puts it in place, and now they have these faithful men. Again, it's not eeny, meeny, miny, mo, but faithful men who love God, they fear God, they hate a bribe, and so on and so forth. They're faithful men who are put in charge of sort of divisions of this group. There is a New Testament example of this that almost is almost spot on the exact same thing. Ramon, I saw your hand raised. What comes to your mind in the New Testament about a similar situation? Okay. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. That is correct. And that was the one that I had in my mind. Sorry, my phone was not on mute. Very good. Acts chapter 6 is what you're talking about very quickly. The church is rapidly growing, and there is this ministry where there are widows, Greek-speaking widows and the Hebrew-speaking widows. Well, the Greek-speaking widows, for some reason we don't know, were being overlooked every day, right? And there was complaining, there was grumbling about it, right? And so the short answer is that the apostles said, you know what? They didn't forsake the ministry. The ministry was important, but they said it's not desirable, in verse 2, it's not desirable for us to neglect the word of God in order to wait tables. This is kind of what Brother Gary was referencing also in his remarks a few minutes ago. And similarly, they said, select from among you, not eeny, meeny, miny, mo, but brethren, 7 men of good reputation, full of the Spirit and of wisdom, whom they may put in charge of the task. They do that, faithful men, and things kind of return to harmony. Again, this is just, I think, an important sort of leadership principle. And again, I'm just trying to be encouraging, right? To help our shepherds, or to remind our shepherds, Gary, Adrian, Greg, that you all have important work to do, but you don't have to be lone rangers, right? Because otherwise you will wear yourself out. You will wear yourself out. Good counsel there. Let's keep going. Laura, you're up next, please. So you will take. I caught you. I know. The both of the Exodus 19. Oh, great. I'm sorry. Pardon me. Mark is going to be up next. Okay. So the two Exodus 19 passages, please, sir. Excellent. So we're going to pause here. I'll come back to you in just a second. Okay, so I just want to make sure that we're all tracking here about what's happening here. Okay, and by the way, in chapter 19, there's going to be a lot of Moses sort of going up the mountain and coming down the mountain. He's going to be going up and down a lot, and so it begins. What just happened here? God gives a message to take back to the people. And Moses takes it back, and then the people have a reaction. What is happening here in these first 8 verses? What's happening here? What is it that God is doing or attempting to do with the people? Say again? Okay. Okay. All right. So we'll start there. Ramon is referring. This is part of the answer. We're going to start here. Ramon is referring to verse 5 and 6, and listen to what is said here one more time. Now then, this is God talking. Now then, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be my own possession among all the peoples, for all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the sons of Israel. So God is essentially saying to them that he's identifying them as a special group of people that he intends to call Israel to be to him. In fact, the King James uses the term peculiar people. Again, just to be clear, I mean, King James uses that word. Peculiar to us means today, in today's English, it means strange. But God was not calling them strange. That term that King James uses for peculiar means specially chosen people. Okay? All right. So in this idea of being a peculiar people or specially chosen, being a holy nation and a kingdom of priests, where have you heard that language before? What did you say? Very good, very good. So Melissa says 1 Peter, and you are correct, that the Apostle Peter quotes this very thing when he makes a similar point about who the church is to God. We are also specially chosen, if you will, the church. We are also, to God, he intends those who are in the church to be as if we were a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. 1 Peter chapter 2, the verses are 9 and 10. We won't turn there now, but that's exactly right. Peter quotes this very thing. So very good, Ramon. Now I'm asking you also, what else is happening here? I want you to notice the words. Anytime you see in a statement, if and then, what kind of statement is a statement that is marked by if and then? One more time. It's a conditional statement, right? If you do 20 jumping jacks a day, then you will have a healthier heart. But you'll only have the healthier heart if you do the jumping jacks. Well, what does God say here in this if-then statement? If the people do what, then what will happen? Verse 5. If you obey my voice, then, Jeff, what will happen? You will be a treasure unto me. So if you obey my voice, and there's something else besides obeying his voice. If you obey my voice and, there it is, keep my covenant, then you will be a treasured people of mine, right? So God here is laying out the foundation of a covenant with the people. And this covenant is based on, it's a conditional covenant that's based on or dependent upon the faithfulness of the people. If you obey my voice, if you keep my commandments, then you will be my special people. And so in verse 8, when after Moses went and told them that, how did the people respond to this proposed covenant? How did they respond in verse 8? All right. They agreed to the covenant. They ratified the covenant. God said, if you do this, I'll do that. And verse 8 says, and all the people answered together and said, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. All right, so this is what we have so far. Mark, are you still up? All right, so that if you would continue, please, sir, 9 through 21.
The Lord said to Moses, I will come to you with a dense cloud, so that the people will hear me speaking with you, and will always put their trust in you. Then Moses told the Lord what the people had said. And the Lord said to Moses, go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow. Have them wash their clothes and be ready by the third day. Because on that day, the Lord will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all people. But then exhort the people around the mountain and tell them, be careful that you do not go up the mountain or touch the foot of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall surely be put to death. He shall surely be stoned or shot with arrows. Not a hand is to be laid on him, whether man or animal. He shall not be permitted to live. Only when the ram's horn sounds and long lasts, may they go up to the mountain. After Moses had gone down the mountain to the people, he consecrated them, and they washed their clothes. Then he said to the people, prepare yourselves for the third day, and abstain from sexual relations. On the morning of the third day, there was thunder and lightning, with a thick cloud over the mountain, and a very loud trumpet blast. Everyone in the camp trembled. Then Moses led the people out of the camp to meet with God. And they stood at the foot of the mountain. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke, because the Lord descended on it in fire.
You're doing great. Yeah. Yep, through 21. Yes, sir, you're doing great.
The smoke billowed up from it like smoke from a furnace. The whole mountain trembled violently, and the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder. Then Moses spoke, and the voice of God answered him. The Lord descended to the top of Mount Sinai and called Moses to the top of the mountain. So Moses went up, and the Lord said to him, go down and warn the people so they do not force their way through to see the Lord, and many of them perish.
Excellent. All right. So the story continues. God has prepared his people to have this encounter with him through Moses, where they're meeting at the mountain. And what's the people's reaction, by the way? You know, because God's presence is God's presence is sort of represented by what here? There's a couple of things that sort of denote God's presence here. Smoke. What else? Cloud, smoke. Anything else? Thunder and lightning. Very good. Anything else? Fire. Anything else? That's it. That's the last one I'm looking for. There's trumpet sound. So I want you to just try to imagine this for a minute, right? There at this mountain, there's smoke, there's fire, there's thunder, there's lightning, and there's a trumpet that evidently is getting louder and louder. There's the booming of thunder. There's the flashing of lightning. There's the smoke. I mean, does this seem like a beach trip? It's pretty intimidating. And and the people had a reaction to it. What was the people's reaction? Don't let us hear this anymore. You talk to them. Right? They're in the presence of the awesome God. And in this instance, God is represented by some pretty intimidating, I don't want to call them symbols, but some pretty intimidating experiences. We'll just say that. All right? And and the people have a reaction. They are really frightened by this. All right? And so now, this is the exchange. The people, God says, he proposes a conditional covenant. If you do this, then I'll do this. All the people say, you know what? Everything you just said, we'll do. Everything, God, that you said, we will do. And so now they have this encounter with God. And now we move into chapter 20, when formally the giving of the law begins. You good now? All right, Laura, if you would, long passage, first 17 verses, please. Oh, yes, sir. Hold on, Laura, hold on.
At the beginning of this reading in 9,
Yes.
it appears to me that Moses is having a conversation,
Yes.
okay?
Yes.
And the people are able to overhear.
Okay. And why do you think that?
That's what it reads.
Okay. Okay.
And then as it comes on down, the conversation, you have all this phenomenon.
Yes.
And the people get scared, and then they say, Moses, you talk to them, we're okay.
Yes. Yes. And so what do you make of all that?
Well, I mean, it's just the people are overhearing the conversation. They're seeing all this phenomenon as we continue to read.
Yes.
Some of them are going to touch the mountain and die and all that.
Yes.
But to me, it's even more evidence of God's greatness than parting the Red Sea.
Yes. That's a very good point. At least it should be. Okay, yeah, okay, all right. So Brother Gary says, so after seeing sort of this awesome display of God, to you, this would be even more evidence of the awesomeness of God.
Because it's happening directly with them, it's not killing an enemy.
Very good. Happening directly with them and in real time.
And it's first person rather than third.
Yes, sir, and in real time. So this should be even more evidence of the power of God. Should be. Well, let's stay tuned. Laura, first 17 verses of chapter 20. That's a good point.
Then God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other God before me. You shall not make for yourself any idol or any likeness of what is in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the water under the earth. You shall not worship them or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children, on the third and the fourth generations of those who
Excellent. All right. Do these sound familiar to you? All right. These are the 10 Commandments. We won't go over them one by one, but these are the 10 Commandments. I just want to just put a fine point on something. I think we probably know this. This is the beginning of the giving of the law. The 10 Commandments is not all that there is to the law. In fact, once we get through continuing through chapter 20 all the way through, almost clear through chapter 23, all of that is the giving of the law. These are the first 10 commandments of the law. This is the basis, the foundation. There are some scholars who have estimated that if you went and truly counted every single law that God gave, it is estimated that God gave in all of his law about 613 commandments. And these are just the first 10. Okay? First 10 commandments. God is now giving his law. Lord, so you did 1 through 17. You good to do another one? All right. So now, one second. So if you will, we're moving to Exodus 24, 1 through 8. Laura's going to read that in just a second, but Gary has another comment. Go ahead.
It just seems something that I picked up in the garden.
Yes.
They choose to eat of the fruit, and one of the motivations is that it's something they don't have. I want what I don't have.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And then when they choose people to help Moses out, one of the qualifications is that they don't greed, there's no pride.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
It's this, to get a gain.
Yes.
All right? And then here, in the Ten Commandments, one of the highlighted, the highlights
Yes.
is again that greed thing.
Yes. Yes. And so that comes up quite a few times, doesn't it?
It's man's nature
Yes.
to be greedy. In other words, if you're going to watch a movie on HBO and it's a mystery movie, you follow the money.
Follow mine. And actually, it's an interesting point because what we will also see, not here, but when we studied the Minor Prophets several months ago, some of Israel fell into being greedy, fell into oppressing the needy, and God had to call them out for that very thing, right? It is something that we always need to be aware of, amongst many other things. All right, we have the 10 Commandments now. This is the basis of God's law, but the 10 Commandments is not all that there is to God's law. But now we move into chapter 24, the first 8 verses. Laura, please.
Moses wrote down all the words of the Lord. Then he arose early in the morning and built an altar at the foot of the mountain with 12 pillars for the 12 tribes of Israel. He sent young men of the sons of Israel, and they offered burnt offerings and sacrificed young bulls as peace offerings to the Lord. Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins, and the other half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. Then he took the book of the covenant and read it in the hearing of the people, and they said, all that the Lord has spoken we will do, and we will be obedient. So Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, behold, the blood of the covenant which the Lord has made with you in accordance with all these words.
Well done. Okay, so just repeating myself one more time. Exodus 21 through 17, that records the giving of the 10 Commandments. What we skipped over, really 2018 through chapter 23, is the giving of the rest of the laws. I told you there's about 613, give or take, depending on how you count commands. We skipped that, and now Laura read for us after God has given all of it, all of the full, well, it's really not even the full breadth of the law, because starting in chapter 25 through 31, God gives additional laws about the tabernacle. So even that's not everything. But what Laura reads for us here is that after giving of a good portion of the law, Moses comes back to the people. He tells them what God expects, and twice the people respond by saying what? Starting in verse, you see it the first time in verse 3, and then the second time in verse 7. Say again? We will do what he says. This is now 3 times that God says, here is my covenant. This is what I'm proposing. If you do this, I'll do this. And on 3 different times, the people say everything that God says we'll do. Everything that he says it will do. This is, that's 24. Jeff Kelly, I'm coming to you now to read for us now, continuing. We got 5 minutes. Continuing in chapter 24, read 12 through 18, please.
The Lord said to Moses, "Come up to me on the mountain and be there, and I will give you tablets of stone, the law, and the commandments which I have written, which I will teach you." Moses rose with his assistant, Joshua. Moses went up to the mountain of God, and said to the elders, "Wait here, persons let me come back to you. Keep Aaron and Hur here with you. If any man has difficulty, let him go to them." Moses went up into the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain. Now the Lord rested on the side. The cloud covered it 6 days. On the 7th day, he called to Moses out of the midst of the cloud. Said the Lord was like a consuming fire on top of the mountain in the eyes of the children of Israel. So Moses went in the midst of the cloud and went up into the mountain. And Moses went out 40 days.
All right, so all of this time, Moses has been engaging with God, receiving parts of the law. I'm skipping for the purposes of this class, chapters 25 through 31, not because they're not important, but just for the sake of time to make a different point. But chapters 25 through 31, God gives more of his law specific to the tabernacle and the works of the tabernacle, the building of it, and then the service of the tabernacle. All right? Jeff ends there by telling us that this time when Moses goes back to the presence of God, he's in the presence of God for how long? 40 days and 40 nights. We end with this, chapter 32. So basically, if we were watching a TV show or a movie, it would be, the subtitle would say, 40 days later. And 40 days later, starting in chapter 32, Jeff, the first 10 verses, and we're going to close with this. Perfect. Here's how we will end our time together, and this is what I want you to think about through the course of this week, and we'll pick this up next week, Lord's willing. The people entered into a covenant relationship with God that was dependent upon their own faithfulness. God essentially says, and I'm paraphrasing, you will be my special people. I will save you if you follow my commands. And 40 days later, they broke it. 40 days later, they broke it. To say that differently, when the ratification or the guarantee of that covenant was dependent upon them, they were not able to keep it. Think about that, and we'll pick it up next week. Thanks for the input today, guys. Thank you. We're dismissed.